Hey everybody, it's Wednesday, October 9th, 2024. Welcome to the NFL Fantasy Football Show presented by Uber Eats. Get game day deals all season long. It's me, your man, MG Marcus Grant, joined by Michael F. Florio and Laquan Jones. We could probably all use a nap. Here we are, staring down the barrel of week 6. We get ready for pretty much hitting the 1/3 mark of the season. And Laquan, so far, how has your fantasy season gone?
I think my shirt kind of explains it, or just everything. I'm slowly backing away from this season because it's getting spooky out here, man. The injuries just need to stop. I'm trying to catch up, but I just can't. It just is what it is.
Any better for you?
No, this is one of my worst seasons in a while, I would say. But it's so bad that I'm looking at teams where I'm sitting at around 500, and I'm like, all right, well, we survived not having AJ Brown. Maybe now we could go on a run. It's that.
It's been a dumpster fire for me so far. If I've got 2 wins, then I'm feeling pretty good about that team. Otherwise, I'm trying not to go fully defeated in a couple of leagues. I think I'm going to be okay in that regard. We have plenty to talk about. We will dive through the Week 6 slate. Also give you some fantasy hot takes for the week. But let's start with a couple of fantasy headlines. In New Orleans, Derek Carr expected to miss multiple weeks with an oblique injury. He suffered that on Monday against the Kansas City Chiefs. So, Florio, how much now, not knowing exactly who the quarterback's going to be, will it be Jake Haener? Will it be Spencer Rattler? We're not sure yet. How much do we downgrade guys like Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, etc.?
The timing of this is awful because it is a really good matchup against the Bucs. I think that matchup alone keeps Chris Olave in play for a lot of people because you would anticipate that he still gets enough volume, although he has not really lived up to the lofty expectations that we had for him, or some people had for him coming into the season. Rashid Shaheed is a really fun player. He's someone that when Derek Carr is healthy, I think you can start. But with a backup quarterback, I would play it safe this week and get away from him. We already know Shaheed is very boom or bust. He's relying on big plays, and without Derek Carr, you have to at least imagine that those big play opportunities are going to decrease. So I think you could probably still start Olave and Kamara, and that would be it for me with the Saints.
Yeah, hopefully, whoever the backup quarterback is, whoever gets in there, they will at least get some targets to Olave. But you're right, Shaheed being such a big play threat makes it really hard to imagine they're going to push downfield and get him significantly involved. Meanwhile, in New England, the Patriots say they plan to start Drake May over Jacoby Brissett this week against the Houston Texans. Laquan, I don't think anybody's rushing out there to start Drake May, but Jalen Polk was starting to get a lot of love, a lot of chatter on fantasy Twitter. Are you ready to start Jalen Polk with Drake May, or are you going to take a wait and see?
I'm going to take the wait and see approach because I think that's why we drafted any Patriots player on this offense, just based on knowing that what Jacoby Brissett is and what he can honestly bring out of some of these players on offense. But with Drake May, it's a new, fresh sign of just all right, we're going to get a peek at the potential future of this Patriots offense with Drake May with their investment. But more so, I don't think anybody's been put in the position, hopefully not yet, to go out there and have to start Jalen Polk, but you're just looking more so of how this chemistry is going to build with him and Drake May, and along with the other guys. We still want to see Javon Baker out there. We want to see him get going. We want to see Demario Douglas continue on being that reliable target to take this offense a little bit further. And especially with this matchup this week, I will pump the brakes on expectations. They got the Texans, and they're one of the best pass defenses in the NFL right now. So, man, I'm just going to enjoy the ride of just seeing how Drake May in his first start this season looks like.
I will tell you this. One, I think you go and you get Jalen Polk. If he's out there on the waiver wire, I think he's worth an ad just because he's starting to get a lot more opportunity. But for this week, I would stream the Texans defense. They gave Caleb Williams fits. They sacked him 7 times. I think they're going to pressure a young quarterback again, and they're worth streaming if that's what you do with your defenses. All right, let's turn our attention now to Week 6. We got byes. 4 teams have the week off: the Chiefs, the Rams, the Dolphins, and the Vikings. All get to sit at home and be fans like the rest of us. So that means you got some notable quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, all not available to you in Week 6. But let's now get to Thursday Night Football. Big one in the NFC West, the 49ers, who kind of scuffling a little bit, going to Seattle to take on the Seahawks, who at the moment are your division leaders in the NFC Western Division. You can see that game on Thursday, 8:15 p.m. Eastern on Prime Video. Florio, I'll ask you about the quarterbacks, because these are two guys that are sort of next to each other, I think, on a lot of people's rankings, a lot of expectations. Brock Purdy versus Geno Smith. Who would you rather start this week?
Brock Purdy, and it's not even close for me. We have seen in the last 2 weeks against the Seattle Seahawks, Jared Goff threw a perfect game and just lit them up, and then Daniel Jones carved them up without Malik Neighbors out there. So I expect big things for Brock Purdy and the passing game, but on the flip side, I actually have Geno Smith as a sit this week. Not only does he have one passing touchdown in each game, but in the history of this matchup, he has not played well. His 3 games that he has faced the 49ers as a member of the Seahawks, he has thrown 1 touchdown pass, 2 interceptions, twice was held under 200 yards, and his high mark is 238. So, yeah, I'm trying to find another option for Geno Smith this week, but I am excited for Purdy.
Maybe this is me being a nervous fan, but look, I would start Purdy over Geno Smith without a doubt, but something about this just makes me nervous. The Niners secondary has given up some big plays. Again, this might be me talking more with my heart than any sort of actual statistical analysis to back it up, but I'm still with you. I think it's Purdy over Geno if you have to decide between the two. Maybe you're putting together a DFS lineup. I don't know. I'm not the boss of you. Don't tell me what to do. Meanwhile, the rest of the Week 6 previews, let's go over to London, Laquan. The Jaguars and the Bears, as the Jags start their back-to-back games over there in the UK. 9:30 a.m. Eastern, you can see that game on NFL Network. Another who would you rather here? Trevor Lawrence, who looks like he's starting to maybe put it together a little bit, versus Caleb Williams, was a great matchup. Who do you want in this one?
I'm going to go with Caleb Williams, man, just based on how he has been building on this momentum the last couple of weeks at home, comfortable at the crib. But now they're across the pond, and I think he could still build off of that confidence and how this offense is starting to click. And honestly, this defense have been doing a great job doing their job as well, holding teams down under 20 points. So we're looking at how Caleb Williams has been building and how the connections have been building also with this offense, with even DeAndre Swift getting involved in the pass game. They keep feeding him. They play him how they paid him, and then therefore that sets up play action for Caleb Williams to honestly go out there and deal. So I'm looking at Caleb Williams being more consistent than a Trevor Lawrence, who finally showed some life last week, putting up 20 fantasy points plus. And that's been a while since he's done that. I mean, the last time he did that, it was week 13 of last season. So I need to see more out of Trevor Lawrence before I start believing putting him into my starting lineups.
Yeah, I made the choice last week to start him over Kirk Cousins. It wasn't, look, here's the thing. Kirk had the huge game. He had 34 points. Trevor Lawrence gave you 21, so it wasn't terrible. But that also sort of feels like the high water mark, and I'm not sure if he can replicate that again this week against Chicago. I would say on the road, but they're both on the road technically since they're playing over in London there, so we'll see.
How are the Jags the road team in this one?
Just because they are designated as such. But next week they'll be the home team.
They are London's team.
They are kind of
they're London's team at this point. What are we doing?
They are kind of London's team at this point. Commanders at Ravens. We're calling this the Battle of the Beltway. Let's keep the who you got theme going. Two quarterbacks who stylistically are very similar to one another. Production-wise have been very similar to each other as well. So Florio, Jaden Daniels versus Lamar Jackson. Which legitimately somebody could have both these guys on a roster depending on how you drafted. Who would you rather start, though?
The answer is both, but if I have to choose, and it is funny that you say that they're similar, because when Jaden was in the NFL draft time, I was like, he is like Lamar Jackson in Tyrod Taylor's frame. But I would go with Lamar of the two if I had to choose, only because one of these defenses is not very good and one of them is. I know the Ravens have been torched through the air a good amount. They've been so good against the run. But the Commanders, look, they're playing better. We're saying that, but they're still getting lit up weekly through the passing game. Receivers are still eating against them. So I would still go with Lamar here. But if you have either one of these two, I'm starting them this week because I expect this to be a high-scoring game. Both quarterbacks can run. This is my favorite game of the week by far.
Oh, yeah. No, I think this is the game that everybody's going to be watching during the day, the early window. Early-ish window, I guess, because there's the morning window on Sunday. But this is going to be a lot of fun to watch. And I would hope this is just a PSA for the internet in general. Like, let's not spend the whole day comparing who's better and whatever. Just like, let's just enjoy the game for what it is.
Also, one is a 2-time MVP. One is playing his 6th NFL game.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
Let's pump the brakes.
Can we
on
flex this
comparison.
game though? Like, I feel like the early window is like,
Right.
like, can we put this at the Sunday night game? Like, this needs to be flexed because this
Yes.
is going to be watch.
wait, you're not
TV.
excited for Bengals
It's
Giants?
gonna be a crowded window.
I'm going to bed early.
We'll get to that in a little bit. In the meantime, Laquan, Cardinals, Packers. Let's not do the who'd you rather. Look, I mean, Kyler Murray versus Jordan Love, interesting conversation. But more, what I'm interested in is this finally going to be the Josh Jacobs breakout game? Because he's been okay, but it hasn't been great so far.
Maybe. You know what? And I think it's only about the few things that you could look at of why it's a maybe. I mean, the matchup is great. The Cardinals are one of the worst run defenses. And plus, he's getting volume. And it's hard out here in the fantasy streets to find a running back that's averaging 20 touches per game. There's only a handful of those guys. But I think the major issue that a lot of fantasy managers have with Josh Jacobs is the rushing touchdowns. He found the end zone against my Rams, last week, which was his first of the season. So hopefully he builds off of that going up against another great matchup with this run defense with the Cardinals really, really poor. But it's also the carries that he's getting in striking distance when they're close to the goal line. He's only had 9 carries so far when they're in the red zone. So therefore, that's one of those things that you look at like, all right, he only got 1 in the man on 9 carries because the Packers are more so a more pass heavy offense when they get into the red zone versus them actually running the ball. So I think that's what's keeping the gap from him being that solid RB1 that we know he can be. It's just that he's not getting those opportunities in striking distance.
Yeah, it just feels like, Emmanuel Wilson just keeps getting opportunities too and sort of closing that gap in terms of the touches there in Green Bay. All right, time now for Is It In You, presented by Gatorade. We look at some sleepers for the week. Who should we be paying attention to, Laquan?
Oh, man, Jalen Tolbert, man. He's gotten me through the pain of trying to find the perfect wide receiver off the wire. And this guy's filling in great on this Cowboys offense, giving Dak another option he can go to on this offense with the run game not being so great right now. It's not exciting whatsoever. And then you're seeing how he is emerging into this offense and being a vital, wide receiver that Dak can depend on. I mean, you look to week 2 where we finally got the fresher breath air of a wide receiver too. But then, with Ferguson being out, that's why that happened. But now with week 4, you look at him and Fergie, how they're operating, they're on the same scale on their targets per route rate. So therefore, they're both critical to this offense. And I like how, Dak is going out there dealing the ball. And there's a lot of fantasy points on this offense just based on we've seen Dak support multiple pass catchers with some type of fantasy relevance. So he's my sleeper this week. Put him in starting lineups.
All right,
I'm right there
Florio,
with you.
who you got this week?
Braylon Allen. Why? Because the Bills cannot guard running backs, at all. Here is what the Bills have allowed so far this season. The most fantasy points per game, the most yards per carry, the most targets, catches, receiving yards, and receiving touchdowns to running backs. Their secondary is very strong. I talk about this a lot, which means that when teams play the Bills, they go to their running backs more in the passing game and their tight ends more in the passing game. I think the Jets are going to go that route this week. I think they're going to want to get the ball to their running backs a good amount to control the clock, to let their defense do their thing and keep Josh Allen on the sideline. So the floor is low with someone like Braylon Allen, but we know he's got big speed. We know he could get potentially a goal line touch here or there. So the upside is high. If I need a swing for the fences type play, I like Braylon Allen.
All right, so you've got a guy who plays his home games in New York, as do
Jersey.
I. And Jersey.
New Jersey, yeah. Hey, don't disrespect Jersey like that, Marcus. Don't be putting us out.
I'm just saying the name on the front of the team says New York. That's all I'm saying.
Nah.
They play in Jersey. I'm not trying to piss off anybody. All right, here we go. Daniel Jones. That's what I'm trying to get to. Daniel Jones is the guy I'm talking about because, look, Daniel Dimes, as we'd like to call him if you're being more formal, 3 games with 2 touchdowns and no interceptions, 3 straight games with 230-plus passing yards, facing a Bengals defense that over the last 3 weeks has allowed about 275 passing yards per game with 8 touchdowns and an interception. Keep an eye on Malik Neighbors, still working his way through the concussion protocol, but last week we saw Daniel Jones go out and have a big game without Malik Neighbors against the Seattle Seahawks. If Neighbors comes back, it's just one more weapon for him to use. That only brightens the outlook for Senior Dimes. We still got some games to go through here on the Week 6 slate, plus our hot starts and some hot takes as well. Stick around for the NFL Fantasy Football Show. It's time for Hot Starts presented by Uber Eats. Guys, we think are going to go big in Week 6. Laquan, who do you like this week?
Oh, T. Higgins, man, he's back. He's healthy. He is a guy that I have as a hot start just based on he is very critical to this Bengals offense. I think he goes out there, shows up and shows out because it's very rare that a wide receiver is playing at a wide receiver 1 level. And right now he has more targets in the last 2 weeks than Jamar Chase. So it's very rare that an offense has 2 wide receiver 1s. So T. Higgins, keep the ball rolling, man.
All right, so you got T. Higgins there. Who do you like, Florio?
I like Caleb Williams, who is coming off his best game as a pro, running, throwing-wise, but it's also largely about the matchup. The Jags have allowed the most fantasy points per game, second most passing yards, third most passing touchdowns. They've allowed a top 8 fantasy quarterback in 4 or 5 games, and that other game, the quarterback was top 12. So start quarterbacks against the Jags, and Caleb is the lucky winner of that matchup.
You know what's been wild is when they give Caleb Williams times to throw, he looks really good and makes really good throws. I know it's just a crazy concept, right? Protection for your quarterback. Who knew? I'm going with a veteran, and that is a tight end there. It is Zach Ertz. And I know it's been tough in these tight end streets, and Ertz has not necessarily been spectacular, but he's been steady. Actually, second on the Washington Commanders roster in routes, targets, receptions, and receiving yards. Pretty much every major receiving category that we talk about. He's going against the Baltimore defense that's been very tight end friendly. 4th most fantasy points allowed to the position, 2nd most receptions, 2nd most receiving yards. Look, we know that Terry McLaurin's going to get his opportunities, but beyond that, where's the ball going to go? Could go in the hands of Zach Ertz. Get back to some of our game previews in Week 6, the Lions and the Cowboys. This one should be a lot of fun, potentially a whole lot of points scored. But Florio, have we reached panic time on Sam Laporta if it does not happen this week?
Yeah, I think so. Like, I'm at the point right now, I only have Sam Laporta on one team, and it was because it's a keeper league. I got him really late, all of that. I was fading him as the tight end 1, but I'm at the point now where I picked up Tucker Kraft for his bye week last week for Laporta's, and I'm like, I might just start Tucker Kraft over Sam Laporta. He does not have 5 targets in a game since week 1. I know last week was his best game yardage-wise, but no touchdowns right now. He's the 3rd read often for Jared Goff. I'm just not feeling great about Sam Laporta right now.
Yeah, it's kind of scary hours for Sam Laporta for sure. Sunday Night Football. We've got the Bengals and the Giants. And Laquan, last week, Tyrone Tracy had a huge game with no Devin Singletary. Now, Singletary is trending in the right direction, hoping to get back on the field to play. So if both of them are healthy and ready to go, which one would you start? And the other question is, does this look like it's turning into a committee there in New York?
It does look like it's turning into a committee. I personally don't have to start Tyrone Tracy, but if you do, I do like his upside being that he's building off of a great performance the week previously. And Devin Singletary is coming back from a groin injury. It's not like an injury that, you could just fix overnight. This is probably something that's probably going to linger for the next couple of weeks. So I could see Tyrone Tracy's touches increase as the weeks go on, and he's looking good with these opportunities. So, it's definitely a guy you should have picked up off the waiver wire, but stash him. Have him ready to go, if he shows some life this week against the Bengals, and you might have to build off, saying Devin Singletary managers, it's going to be wicked for him, man.
And what's frustrating about this is because I will say this, I wasn't really big on Devin Singletary coming into the year just because I didn't think the Giants offense was going to be that great. And so he has outperformed what I expected of him, which is great. Now the possibility of him having to share those opportunities is really frustrating all of a sudden. I mean, it's good for the Giants. It's bad for us. Mm-hmm. That's all I got. Monday Night Football, Bills and the Jets. Florio, this is big for you. You mentioned on NFL Fantasy Live that the Jets are fans of the Mets because the Mets winning takes pressure off of the Jets, takes some eyeballs away. Meanwhile, for the Bills, and you've talked about this before, Khalil Shakir obviously has been very good. They take him out of that offense, and things start to scuffle a little bit. Can you start a Bills receiver not named Khalil Shakir, especially against this Jets defense?
Nope. Not at all. I mean, look, I still have faith in Keon Coleman moving forward. Like, he had a big play last week, the long touchdown. He's made some impressive catches, but they're not using him enough right now where you could start him, especially against Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed. So, plus, the last time the Bills played the Jets was Josh Allen's best game ever against them. But before that, this defense has been his kryptonite. So I would stay away from the receivers. I think if Shakir is there, you could play him because he'll be in the slot a lot. But it's Shakir, Kincaid, James Cook, or bust when it comes to the Bills this week.
Will we start to see more Dalton Kincaid? I mean, I'm asking, you're the resident Bills fan here. I mean, Dalton Kincaid has been meh. Like in the grand scheme of tight ends, he's fine, but not great.
Yeah, so last week was an interesting game. He had a catch on the sideline that was deemed not a catch. I don't know why Sean McDermott didn't challenge it. It was clearly a catch. And then he got open on what would have been like a 70-yard touchdown, but Josh Allen just flat out underthrew him. It was almost intercepted. So I know I keep saying this, but I think the season for Kincaid has been better than the results have shown so far. I still have faith in him moving forward.
Look, I want to ask you real quick about the Jets, too, because obviously they make the big change at the head coaching position. Robert Saleh gone. Jeff Ulbrich takes over as the interim. A lot of times we see kind of an emotional bump from teams after a change here. Can you expect that? Does that make you more interested in starting any Jets players this week?
No. I mean, look, it's a division battle as well, and then the storyline just keeps getting better over there in the Jersey Shore. And then, like, they got Angelina out of the house. Shout out to Florio in the comparison there with Robert Saleh. But I just feel like, right now I'm just on a wait and see approach here with the Jets offense because it's not consistent. You can't really trust it. Alan Lazar is still playing good football, and he's still really good buddies with Aaron Rodgers. Garrett Wilson, you're just going to have to eat it. You're going to have to start him regardless of whatever other options you have because you don't want to miss out on the big blow-up games he just had last week, 22 targets. Like, this is something that, it's just going to be very frustrating to start any Jets offensive players in your starting lineups.
I'm amused that Alan Lazard has become a four-letter word in fantasy circles. It's like, ugh, Alan Lazard. It's just like the way fantasy folks just spit that name out of their mouths has become amusing to me.
It's frustrating. It's frustrating.
I get it. I totally get it for sure. In the meantime, now it is a time for Hot Takes presented by Frank's Red Hots. By the way, you can catch the rest of our Week 6 previews on Fantasy Extra over on NFL Plus. But let's get spicy, Laquan. What are you thinking might happen in Week 6?
This is the big blow-up game that we've been waiting from K-Dot, and this is the breakout game against the Saints, who are on the short week. They're kind of banged up as well, but they've been allowing a ton of production to the tight ends this season. And he's a guy that's on the same basis of being targeted as much on the targets per route basis as Chris Godwin. So he's being utilized as one of the core pieces in this offense. So he has a role, and he has a situation where the Saints are allowing 80% of completions to tight ends this season, which is the fourth highest rate. So K-Dot and breakout game this week. Let's go.
All right, so big things from a tight end, which we will all be thankful for if it actually happens. Florio, let's get spicy.
Chase Brown will be the RB1 this week in Week 6 because Zach Moss is banged up, but even more than that, Chase Brown has got more work the last 2 weeks, and he has looked excellent. He has the best fantasy game of any running back against the Ravens. Through the first 4 weeks, the Ravens did not allow a run of 10-plus yards to a running back. Last week, Brown got 2 of them, and that is important because that is considered an explosive run, and the Giants allow explosive runs at the 3rd highest rate in the NFL. They struggle against pass-catching backs as well, so just give Brown volume this week, Bengals, and I think he can have a huge day. And I'm saying here, the RB1. So let's eat on Sunday Night Football, Chase Brown.
I would love that because I did invest a little bit heavily in Chase Brown in this offseason. Fellas, you know what you get when you mix some eggs, some oil, a little lemon juice, and salt?
No.
Mayonnaise.
Ooh.
That's right.
Look
So
at you.
that's why I'm saying get your mayo ready for this week because Will Levis is going to be a top 10 fantasy quarterback in Week 6. I know it sounds wild, and I know he's had some bad games, but you look at the opponents in those bad games. It was the Bears, the Jets, and the Dolphins. Those are the 3 worst matchups when it comes to fantasy quarterbacks. He got a middle-of-the-road matchup against the Packers. He scored 15 points. Not great, not terrible. Now he gets a great matchup against the Indianapolis Colts. No team has allowed more yards on deep throws. 3rd best matchup for a quarterback so far this season. I think you're going to see Will Levis take some shots downfield. Hopefully he and Calvin Ridley are able to connect on a couple of them. But either way, I think you're going to get a good game out of Will Levis. You'll probably still get some hilarity, too, some sort of weird off-the-wall turnover or crazy memeable thing on the sideline. But I think this is going to be a big Will Levis week for the Tennessee Titans.
Ooh. That's spicy mayo right there.
Spicy mayo. It's like mayo with a little bit of sriracha in it because we're getting hot. A little bit of Frank's Red Hot in that mayo right there is what we're talking about. Okay, that's a good way to end the show as well because it was spicy. That is it. We are done. We appreciate you hanging out with the NFL Fantasy Football Show presented by Uber Eats. You know the drill. Tell two friends to tell two friends. Rate, review, and remember, silence is golden. Unless you have kids, then silence is suspicious. Be safe, take care of yourselves, and we will talk to you tomorrow.